Pickle, let's go to the hotline. You know football season is right around the corner when we get to pick up our usual Tuesday conversation about Texas high school football. The Texas High School Football Hall of Famer himself and my co-host on High School Scoreboard Live. He is the great Craig Way. Craig, long time no see. I've now talked to you for 3 consecutive days.
You know, something crossed my mind about this, Tep, and you made a comment about a couple of questions or comments I made as me being in mid-season form. Mm-hmm. Well, it crossed my mind that you must be in mid-season form, and Aaron Hardigan must be in mid-season form, and Pickle must be in mid-season form, because the way that those two get after you and the way that you get after them, playfully, I might add, but get after one another all the same on social media. And I thought to myself, am I going to have to separate them on the show this year at some point? I got to thinking about that.
Yeah, you've always been like the voice of reason on that show, and now it's like you're gonna need to be the referee. But you got kids.
Yeah, you and CT Steckel now on Football Friday.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to that. That'll be fun. And we had a lot of fun yesterday, obviously with the preview show, and it was great to see Pickle yesterday. And it's time, or getting close anyway, and we're all, I know all of us are pretty excited about it.
It is certainly time, because we are now closing in. We're like 8 days away from real live Texas high school football happening across the state of Texas. So I want to take a look back at kind of the offseason writ large. And to me, there's 2 big storylines that they come about every offseason, but especially so it feels like this offseason. One of them is realignment, and the other is coaching changes. Now, realignment we talked about a little bit whenever we had you on our show talking about realignment, back in February. But now that you've had a little bit of time to digest the realignment out there, where have you settled on it as far as what is going to be the thing that ends up being what we're talking about in October and November, which is ultimately what realignment ends up doing? What have you settled on as being the real headline from what we saw in realignment?
Well, I think there's 2 folders involved in that, Tep. One, of course, is the district realignment of certain schools, and we've had a lot of fun with this, and I've really zeroed in on it, as you know, the 3AD1 and the 4AD1 pairing of the respective state champions of Division I and Division II in the same district. In 4A D1, obviously, that's Stephenville and China Spring. And in 3A Division I, it's Lorena and of course, Franklin. Franklin moving up to D1, and in 4A, China Spring moving up. That's one area, and we've had quite a bit of conversation on that. The other is when you jump in classification. LBJ down here in Austin is jumping back into 5A, but it's not that far into them because they played in 5A for many, many, many years before the 2-year drop into 4A. So I think they're skilled enough to handle it. And we looked at Liberty Hill moving into 5A last year, and all they did was make a run to the final before being stopped by the historic run by South Oak Cliff. But the other thing that comes to mind is the upper classification, and the biggest you might say seismic shift, if you will, is to see Pato, a 5A state champion, not defending its title because they're going to go 6A, and then Highland Park, which for many, many, many years in the 50s, back into the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and into the 90s, was at the highest level of high school football for years before the nomenclature changed. That was Class 4A. Then it became Class 5A. 1984, they were a Final Four team in 5A, lost to Odessa Permian in the 5A state semifinals. And then once you got on in through the 90s and on into the 2000s, then there was the classification drop, and then insert, furrowed brow and wink, wink, nudge, nudge about Highland Park's classification stuff all those years. But so now they move back into 6A, and I think the answer on Highland Park and Pato is, yeah, they're both going to be factors in some form. I don't know that either will be state championship contenders, but they can certainly impact the races, as we're discussing, back to the start of your question, in weeks 8 and 9 and on into the postseason.
So that's one side of the offseason kind of puzzle. The other side of it is the coaching changes, and we always see this, especially in a realignment year. There are more coaching changes than usual, but it does feel, and I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but it certainly feels even more seismic this year with big name programs. Making a lot of them making changes at the head coaching position. I'll leave it to you like this. Are there a couple of schools with new coaches that you are going to be particularly keeping an eye on and see how the adjustment fares with the new guy in charge?
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously down in these parts, everybody's going to be zeroing in on Westlake. I mean, if Todd Dodge walks away from having won 3 in a row, and, how well-heeled is this team to make a good run for it? It doesn't matter whether Todd was still coaching or not. The odds of winning a 4th straight are pretty steep, even as talented as they are. And then, of course, you say, well, how will it go with Tony Salazar? But here's the other thing, Tab. Think about this for a minute. How did we get all the way through a show yesterday and not mention Lee Wigginton and Allen?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did we do that? We did that because we had so many other major themes of coaches switching and moving up and retiring, Phil Danaher, all that sort of stuff. And I'm driving home last night, and I thought, you know what? He mentioned Lee Wigginton and Allen because it happened late in the day and all that, so to speak, stuff, with him making that move there. But that's huge. That's really big, and I think he's an outstanding coach. And we know what a challenging job that is at Allen. But here we are talking about him now, and it's 2 weeks till it gets going.
Craig Way, the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer, joins us every Tuesday here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation on hashtag TF Today. The good thing is you get a stay of execution on my favorite question, which is to ask you to pick one game you want to go to. Well, don't worry, I'm gearing up to ask you next week. Really excited, but I will ask you a little bit about the grand themes of the season coming up. There's a lot of changes with realignment and things like that. We put on the gatefold cover of the magazine South Oak Cliff, and South Oak Cliff, of course, the 5A Division II state champions, and what they were able to do, the run to the state championship, what it represents not only for them but for inner city programs across the nation. I think that was really a big part of what 2021 looked like, and it was something that we didn't necessarily see coming. Whenever you take a look now at the upcoming season, especially with regards to maybe some programs like that, you mentioned yesterday about Austin LBJ making the move up from 4 Division I to 5 Division II, themselves a state finalist. We've heard people say all the time about how they never thought an inner city program would win a state championship ever again. Do you think that what South Oak Cliff did is not only sustainable but transferable in the sense of what I should say South Oak Cliff and LBJ did? Is it not only sustainable and transferable to the point that we should that we may see an uptick in quality from inner city programs? I do. Mm-hmm.
I believe it because we've seen where programs can get more competitive. In the final analysis, it really comes down to, as we know, kids in the program, numbers in the system, all of those kinds of things. And the entire state, in specific, the inner city high school communities around the state got a chance to see, to quote the late, great Vin Scully, in a year that was so improbable, the impossible has happened. And it really did, because it was so highly improbable that an inner city school could win an upper level state championship. And you have to say upper level because there aren't very many inner city schools at the lower. There's a few as shrinking enrollments have come that would make it difficult. But at the higher levels, yeah, it was going to be extremely difficult. So what I'm fascinated about, one of the key themes on this tab, is here was this incredible story last year, maybe the number one story in all of high school football in Texas. What do they do for an encore? And they are well-heeled for an encore. You made the comment when we were taping the preview show that they might be in better position to do it now as a result. The big difference is, and I think you pointed this out as well, they're now the hunted, they're not the hunter. But yes, other programs have noted it. I mean, we got within one win of having 2 inner-city schools win state titles last year, with LBJ getting to the final in 4AD against Stephenville. So do I think it's possible? Absolutely. I do think it's possible. I also pointed out that it's certainly possible that you could have an all inner-city high school state championship matchup now that South Oak Cliff and Austin LBJ are in the same division in 5AD2. Now, Liberty Hill will have something to say about that down in that lower half of the bracket, just as the contenders in the upper half, SOC will have to go through. But put it this way, it's a much more plausible conversation to have now than it was, say, 2-3 years ago?
Oh, 100%. I think you're right. I think if you had just come to somebody and said, hey, by the way, what if we have South Oak Cliff and Austin LBJ in a title game? It would just laugh, just outright laughter. Because
they'd say in what, basketball?
Yeah, right.
You know?
Like, let alone we're gonna have 2, let alone 1. Like, it would be something like that. But it is certainly the shifting sands of Texas high school football. He's Craig Way. He's the Texas High School Football Hall of Famer here every weekday on the Horn in Austin. Of course, you can see him on High School Scoreboard Live starting next. No, well, yeah, I guess you will be on Scoreboard, but you're on the call from Manville and Shadow Creek, right? Mm-hmm.
I am with Gary Reasons. I will pop on. I will pop on with you and Aaron, and at least to discuss the game that I will have just called. So and other reactionary things. So yes, I will pop on the show.
So you can hear his dulcet tones next Friday on Shadow Creek and Manville. And so next week, Craig, we'll have you on, and we will ask you which game you're sad you're going to be missing, because you'll be at that game. So Craig,
I will be compiling a list of the possible games that you could ask me about, and I guarantee you there will be at least 3 on my list that won't be on yours, and vice versa.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about Jayton and May. Craig, appreciate you, my friend. We will talk next week.
Pickle, keep up the good work, gigging him a little bit,
I'll do that.
Because we know Aaron will do it.
Mm-hmm. No, don't worry. We're tag teaming this.
I'm starting to feel like this whole thing's a mistake. Thanks, Craig.
Bye, Craig.
See ya.
There he goes. Craig Way, the Texas High School Hall of Famer, joins us every Tuesday here on Texas Football Today. And yeah, now it starts. We're going to talk with him every Tuesday.
Tuesways!
So we will have Craig on this time, same bat channel.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.